Welcome to Downshift, my name is Matt, and this is Audi's Subtle Family Super SUV. This is their SQ7, and today, thanks to our friends at Audi Milwaukee, we're covering everything that you need to know and everything that makes this SQ7 special. Let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the engine, and it's just kind of special. It's not special in the sense that it's unique and only for the SQ7, but it's special in the terms of the company that it keeps. This is Audi's, or Volkswagen Group's, 4-liter twin turbocharged V8. It's the same engine that you'll find in something like a Porsche Panamera Turbo, a Cayenne Turbo, a Lamborghini Urus, Bentley Bentayga, Audi RS6 and RS7 twins. I mean, here it is detuned a little bit. It's making 500 horsepower and 570 pound-feet, but it's still plenty quick. It does 0 to 60 in about 4.3 seconds according to Audi, but real-world testing is seeing just under 4 seconds. So this is a sub 4 second 0 to 60 V8 that's shared with Porsches and Lamborghinis. That's pretty cool. And the other part of that is the back end, and that's the exhaust. Now this isn't an RSQ7. There is no RSQ7. So that means you get the quad oval tips here rather than the big dual oval exhaust. But it still sounds epic from startup to rev. You also do get an S-specific diffuser back here, but it sounds pretty good. And I just touched on it, but I want to talk about the rest of the lineup here in terms of other Q7s. Now, there's a normal Q7, V6, whatever, but then there's this SQ7, which gets the 4-liter twin-turbo V8. But again, that's the same engine as in the RS6, the RS7, and the RSQ8. So to go up to an RSQ7 would just probably be a different tune. They're not going to put a bigger engine in it. So there isn't an RSQ7, in the same way that there isn't an X7M. But then just touching briefly on the styling and everything, it's got the classic Audi subtlety. It is, of course, in this incognito all black package with the black optics and the grille and everything like that. The wheels are really the only things that aren't black. And then, of course, you do get red S's on your brake calipers, front and rear. Well, sorry, just the front, actually. And you do get a red detail on your rear gate. But the rest of the car is black. And it's the same kind of thing for the interior. If you've seen one Audi interior, at least above an A5, they're all kind of the same. Virtual cockpit, dual screens, really nice materials, but otherwise kind of just what you'd expect. But speaking of the subtlety, the seats actually have the most personality, at least on the interior. They're, of course, the S bucket performance seats. They've got the S logo embossed into them. They've got excellent diamond quilting here. They're heated, they're cooled, and this one has the optional massage here, so you can get several different types of massage. The headrest doesn't really move, it stays there, but they're really comfortable, really nice, and the leather is super supple. And then we're going to talk about the trunk. Of course, power liftgate, nothing super surprising there. Whirs out of the way. And you can see, with your third row down, you have a absolutely cavernous cargo area. Now this is something really impressive because this is smaller than the GLS, it's smaller than the X7, and you still have all of this storage. And you get a totally flat floor, super nice. And you've got air suspension so you can raise and lower the car to get things in and out easier. And you have power up and down for your third row. You do have to hold it, which is maybe mildly annoying, but to me, it's not really the end of the world. Of course, and then even with your third row up, look at this. I mean, this is more space than you get in an X7 with the rear seats up, with the third row up. Of course, then you can put them back down. The only ding I will give it is the fact that you can't drop the second row automatically from the trunk. And I do want to address the third row. You can fold the second row out of the way, get it right here, pull that little tab, and this folds out of the way. And then you can use these buttons, which aren't exactly ideally placed, but you can get the third row back up from back here. The thing is, like I said, this is smaller than a GLS, bigger than a GLE, but smaller than a GLS. You don't get a huge amount of room back here. Now you do get small cup holder, little cubby, little hanger back here, and a window, Alcantara headrest and everything, but look, getting in here, kind of a pain. Oh, my knee. I mean, as you can see, I'm 6'1". There's no way that I'm gonna fit back here. So It is nice that it comes standard with a third row. It's nice that the trunk folds flat, because most of the time, 90+% of the time, you'll probably have this folded down. But it is, I guess, nice to have this option for 2 extra seat belts. So if you do have extra kids in here from time to time, you can put them back here. But the other thing to note is all the fancy diamond stitch pattern from the sports seat doesn't continue back in the third row. So as far as exterior design, like I said, it is really subtle. The most personality that you get is from the headlights, and that's kind of typical from Audi. Now, this SQ7 and the Q7 got a facelift a couple years ago, and they went to this really cool layered running light design. They're not actually pulsing in real life, it's just the way the camera's picking it up, but they're really cool. It's got a nice detail, it's kind of broken up, and that's how you know it's the more updated one. And the taillight design is almost identical. Really cool. And of course you get the sequential turn signals front and rear. But the interior lighting is a little bit more subtle. You do have ambient lighting, it's about here, there's some going on in here, but it is more subtle, generally speaking. At least subtle than what you'd get from Mercedes, but they are on a different planet in terms of ambient light. One small thing that I really do like is just how small the sill is here to get into the car. It's super easy to get in and out. You don't have to step over a wide sill. Usually on performance cars, they extend this to give it like a nice wide, imposing stance, but this is nice and skinny, and it's got a nice S silver brushed aluminum kick plate. Really nice. But then in terms of your infotainment, again, fairly simple. You have a dual screen setup. So your upper screen is all for your information and your media controls. And then your lower screen is all about your climate and your comfort. You've got your heated seat, your cooled seat controls down here. You can turn this screen off. And you can do a couple other things. You can write down here if you really want to, but generally speaking, it is fairly simple. Now, like I said, up here, there's not a lot of frills or gimmicks. You get nav, you get nice 360 cameras, you get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but generally speaking, it's just kind of normal. You get the 3D views, you can kind of spin around the car. This does look like a normal Q7, which is a bit of a bummer. And it's gray versus the cool black spec that we have here. The wheels aren't the same, but still a nice 360 camera. And the other side of that coin is, of course, the virtual cockpit from Audi. This isn't necessarily groundbreaking. We've seen it for a number of years now, but it's still one of my favorite in the business. The black levels are fantastic. You can change the different views, phone view, you got navigation. I just want to touch on some of the interior details real quick, like we've talked about this whole time. It's black leather with a little bit of contrast, but otherwise it is pretty black, and this is very typical Audi spec. We do have a full width dash vent, although this middle part here, you can see it's not actually a vent, but you get vents here, and this whole bit is just gloss black. This actually does light up, which is quite cool, but you do have carbon fiber down here on your lower dash and rimming your center console area, so that gives it kind of like a nice sporty performance type feel. You got great diamond stitching and in your second row, but not your third, and your steering wheel is really nice too. But again, it's just the build quality. I mean, I can try to shake and rattle this thing apart and it's just not gonna go anywhere. And we'll head into the back seat. I guess you could call this the second row, since it, I guess, technically is, but you step in here, and you've got great space. I mean, I'm 6'1", I've got knee room in front of me. I can slide forward and backward, so this is all the way back. I've got plenty of knee room in front of me. I've got nice light and air coming in from the panoramic roof, plenty of headspace. And then we do have things like rear shades to keep sun out of your face and poor people out of your face. Alcantara, carbon fiber continues back here, all the nice materials. You do have quad zone climate, so this and this gets its own climate. Map pockets, all the best stuff back here. So it's pretty comfortable. And then in terms of wheels and tires, you have 2 size options. This is the 21, which is actually the smaller size. You can go up to a 22-inch wheel, but personally, I kind of like the ride that you get from a little bit more sidewall here. They look great. They're kind of like a 2-tone diamond cut. You've got a little bit of sparkle and sheen here, and then this is more of a brushed flat look. Huge black S brake calipers with the red S in there, but they look great and they fill out the wheel wells well. And then in terms of suspension, your SQ7 gets air suspension as standard, which is really nice because you can control how soft or firm you want it to be. In dynamic mode, it firms right up. It keeps the chassis nice and neutral if you want to hustle it through a corner, or when you want it to just be a normal family luxury SUV, you can go into comfort mode and then it softens way back and the ride is super nice. Also, you do get rear steer here as standard, which makes this thing super easy to whip around, do U-turns, navigate parking lots in urban areas, so it's just easy to drive. And then your grille design. You notice it is more of a cross lattice pattern with your radar transponders, but it is a very different grille than we're used to seeing on something like the top performance version of like an RSQ8, which is more of a mesh black pattern. But I guess since this is an SQ7 and on an RSQ7, it makes sense. Still, looks pretty cool and pretty imposing. You also get carbon wing mirrors. And on the interior here, you get S on the steering wheel, and on your start-stop button, it's got a red rim because it's the fast one. And then we're going to talk towing. And this thing has a pretty impressive towing capacity, 7,700 pounds, which makes it 200 pounds more than what you can get in a BMW X7 that comes in at 7,500. It is technically 16 pounds less than you can get in the new or updated Mercedes GLS, but I mean, 16 pounds, we're kind of splitting hairs. I bet this thing could tow 7,716. But also interestingly, that 7,700 number keeps popping up. That is the max towing capacity for a Chevy Colorado and a GMC Cayenne. So those are dedicated body-on-frame pickup trucks that have the same towing capacity as your luxury super family SUV. And the last thing that we always talk about is price. Now, an SQ7 starts at $90,000. Now, as tested, this thing is loaded up and maxed out at about $105,000. But when you think about it, it's super cheap. I mean, the BMW X7 M60i, the closest competitor to this from a three-row perspective, starts at $109, so $4,000 more than the maxed out price here. The Mercedes GLS 580, not even the AMG, but just the V8 one, starts at $105. So it starts, again, where this tops out. And the GLS 63, I mean, forget about it. It's got a $140,000 starting price. So it may not be the craziest in terms of performance, but it is almost certainly the best bang for your buck. So those are the 19 coolest things about the Audi SQ7. This is a refreshingly and surprisingly fun family SUV that's trying its best to hide its fun personality. But thanks again to our friends at Audi Milwaukee for letting us have a go, and make sure that you check out our full pro and con video on the channel now. We'll see you then.